Now's the time.
Guys, we're back. This is episode 10 of Combat on the Couch with the Ugly Franco, brought to you by Carney Combat Sports, produced by Ugly Franco Productions LLC. Okay, so we've got one of the most interesting people in Kearney, Nebraska today on the couch. All right, we're not really sure what he does, but that's how he likes it. Okay, he's been involved in cybersecurity for a number of years. Currently, we don't really know what he does. We're gonna find out. And this is Jason Tate, everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to the podcast. This has been overhyped for me for so long.
Really hasn't been.
I feel underdressed.
Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not how it works. I put on this for my show. I play my show, you play your show, we play our shows. You know what I mean?
It's fantastic.
Whatever stage we live in, that's how it works.
That's right.
I feel more comfortable with you dressed like that than if you were dressed any other way. How about
Good.
that?
This makes me comfortable. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
Makes me feel like I'm actually doing something.
Because you are.
You know? We are.
Because he is.
My man.
Yeah.
How's your day been? How's your morning been?
Man, it's been fantastic. You know what? How has it been? Words are powerful. It has been fantastic, phenomenal. I love breathing oxygen.
There we go.
You know what I mean? Because I know what it feels like not to.
Do you guys like that too?
Like legit. I know what it's like not to. You know, that's how life is.
What do you mean you know what it's like not to?
I know what it's like not to have oxygen going into your lungs because somebody or something is removing it from your body. I know what it feels like. I know what we're in a jiu-jitsu gym. So
okay, that's what I meant. Okay, I thought you were like a prisoner of war or something.
Well, I've gone through those situations as well, but we don't have to touch that right now. We want to dance first. Don't we want to dance first?
I wanted to get it out quick, man.
I want to feel it now in your chest. Say it with your chest.
Exactly.
Yeah. But no, I know what it's like to touch on that directly. I know what it's like not to have the liberties of being free. Feels like. I know what it feels like when somebody wants to take your life. I know what it feels like to be tortured. So I take everything as a blessing. Every moment, every time that I have the ability to be in the position that I'm in now, which means free, flowing. As an African American, I say that too. Like just a person that can be existing in my highest frequency and vibration. I appreciate it because I know what it's like not to have it. Gratitude. You know what I mean? I've heard that. I'm an alchemist, right? That's the name of my company. That's what I identify as.
For the listener that doesn't know, what's an alchemist?
An alchemist is a person that understands that thoughts become things, that everything is energy around us, and the whole purpose that we came here on this earth is to learn how to manipulate that energy, whether that's taking somebody's aggression and turning it into more love, or to take one position that you're in and turn it into the most advantageous position that you can be in, turning brokenness into riches, turning hate into love. An alchemist is a person that understands that you're seeing things through a certain lens, and an alchemist sees beyond that. Not because we're better, it's because we take the time to see through what most people run from. You know, and you learn, I guess, you know this as well. Naturally, the human condition, we are conditioned out of birth to go away from pain and towards pleasure. That's the dance that we do in Kali and Arlis and all of the martial arts. That's what you're chasing. You're chasing somebody's dance away from pain into their pleasure so that you can interject and introduce them to pain again. Well, an alchemist is a person that says, I'm comfortable on either side of that spectrum, and I can really make you uncomfortable on how you decide to see that. Whether or not you see me running towards pleasure or you see yourself running towards pain, I'm going to manipulate that in a way that's going to make your life either good or bad, and however you decide to negotiate that is how your life.
Depending on how you feel at the moment, you can make it like bad or good for them, depending on how you feel, because you're the alchemist, right? You're the one who's kind of in control.
Facts, but we're all alchemists. So
definitely, it's definitely a skill set, though. Some people are bad alchemists.
Some people are bad alchemists. Man, you spotted that one. I gotta steal that from you. Some people are bad alchemists. They're either not good at it or they're just bad at their craft. That's what. So to your audience and to you as well, an alchemist is a person that just simply understands it, wielding the power, manipulating the magic. That's the craft. Just like a witch or just like a
I was gonna say, are you a wizard?
So that's a different element. No. So that's where people take the magic and they go into a realm where it's so in the weeds. Let's say that. Okay. They go into the weeds with their belief system.
Okay.
You know, it's almost like religion. So alchemy has no premise on religion because religion is something you have to go through to become an alchemist. You have to know you were a slave to some system before you can be free in another.
Woo.
Say that.
Dang, dude.
That was deep.
He just mic dropped himself. He just mic dropped himself.
Yes. It was deep for me. I was like, whoa, I felt that in my chest.
What did you say it again?
Yeah, you have to know that you are a slave to one system to be free in another.
Boom.
So if you were restricted by a religion, and I'm not getting into the religion, hey, I'm a Christian, don't say that I'm a Muslim. No. What I'm saying is you had to go through some form of religion to understand there's something beyond it. You have to know that. So in the same sense with people who are not living their best life.
You got to get through the church to see there's Jesus, right? God, right?
There's a God and there's a Christ in all of us that has nothing to do necessarily with the person named Jesus. The Jesus was a euphemism of sorts. It's a we have Christ in us. As it is inside, so it is outside. So the 12 disciples, just like the 12 tribes of Judah, just like the 12 elements in our core elements of existence. And there's all things that we see in these books, these Bibles, these Qurans, these Torahs. They have truth in it. If the mind was able to conceive it at one point in time, there was a truth that was perceived in it. It's just the human ego that creates those separations of control that wants people to believe them in one element. It's in the Bible. I want you to read it my way. It's in the Torah. I want you to read it this way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no. They want it to be perceived the way that they read it, or the way that they wrote it. If it's taken out of, just like if I wrote a diary, I would want somebody to understand what I was feeling when I wrote it. But when it gets messed up is when they have these unjust feelings of like they're not doing what I want them to do.
And how about this? Have you heard about that drill or that experiment? We get 6 people. I think you need to have 3 degrees of separation or 3 removed. So 3 or more people. You put them in a line. I whisper into one ear, "Hey, so my secret is I have 2 feet." Right, and then I tell another person. By the time it gets to you, it's going to be a degree or 2 off of the core message. That's the human ego. That's the human slave system. And
because they have to make something their own? Because they have to change it a little bit?
You're an alchemist yourself. Why are you playing with me? You already know this game.
Hey, baby, we outside.
Yeah, we outside. Yes, I love it. You already know this, but that's exactly what it is. The ego wants to live on forever.
Yeah,
that's why we want to
sense.
procreate. I don't know why I did that gesture, but we want to create.
Hey, baby.
Yo, hey, mama. But we want to create seeds and legends and legacies for ourselves, whether that's in our job, whether that's in being in martial arts, whatever we're doing. We want to teach what we've learned on our journey because we feel that's what we came here for. When in a certain understanding, you understand that that's not why you came here. Your journey is your journey for your path, so you don't have to come back here again for another experience, because there's so much magic here. There's so much power we have as humans that we are taught to be slaves to not having the power. That's why, that's art imitates life. And I'm not trying to go off on a tangent. But when you watch TV and you watch movies, there's truth in it. And as an alchemist, I can tell you, I know what it means to walk on water. I know what it means. I'm not saying I've done it. I can sense it. If you can put yourself in a situation, just like in jiu-jitsu, and I'm bringing that up because, Karmi Combat Sports, I understand this. I have a lot of respect for everything that's going on here. And I love martial arts myself, so I love to speak in those parables, if that makes sense, in that vein, if you will.
You're being relatable to the people that are listening.
That part, as you said. So when you understand that you have to think through a certain scenario in order for you to accomplish it, you have to think it through first. Like, you can be in a causation type of situation where all you're going to do is going to be who's going to win is the person who has more cardiovascular endurance. But the thought, that's why jiu-jitsu is so beautiful, or other martial arts as well, where you have to think it through. I'm going to play chess with you long enough to understand your weakness, and whether or not your weakness is your ego or your weakness is your lack of due diligence, your lack of pulling all the way through. I'm going to find that. I'm going to manipulate it, and I'm going to make you I'm going to make it mine. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how I exploit it. The same thing happens in life, though. A lot of us walking around, if you're not living, if I ask somebody and say, "Hey, man, how you living?" And "Oh, I'm doing great. I'm having a great day." No, fuck that. Excuse me. Tell me how you're living. Like, how are you living? Are you appreciating your life? Are you living your best life? And if anybody that tells me they're not living in their dream, that means they are a slave to a thought, just a simple thought that they have not molested, and exploited, and overcome. And that's what I mean by slavery. When you're tied to a belief that something's not letting you live that life, because we have superpowers. If you think it, my life right now, man, my life.
You're pretty much your own boss, right?
Man,
you do what you want, right?
I do what I want. Rick James level, like on the couch. You know what I mean? Like, and I mean that. Like, I love your couch. I love you. Oh, yeah. But I say that to say, I mean it, but I mean it with so much. I remember the reason why I'm so happy to be who I am, because I remember when I wasn't.
Right.
I remember I was a product of the government. And when I say that, I'm not talking about my 3-letter intelligence days. I'm talking about when I was spending years in juvenile because I was a Rolling 60 West Side Crip doing stupid shit on the streets, thinking that was cool. Not because I was in the streets, but because my father, who came, we lived in a middle class, type of environment. But I wanted to be around the thugs in the streets because I didn't trust my father. I didn't trust at that time. I was like, I resonate more with those guys who just have nothing to lose. So I chose to live in that environment and got me some doing stupid stuff out in the streets and spent 3 years in juvie. Like, if you the Maury Povich shows where you see the boot camps and they the abuse and they beat and all that stuff, I was a part of that.
Right.
On both sides.
Yeah.
So I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
So I appreciate these moments right now, sitting here in Kearney with you guys, with a group of very professional people, really intrigued, really on point. I love it and I appreciate it. So I have gratitude in that. That's the currency of the universe.
Man, I really appreciate you, dude. I appreciate you coming here, giving us time. And these are the people that we want here. People that are free thinkers, the alchemists of the world, the people that understand that a guy is a slave to a thought. Like, that's a really, really interesting thought. I don't want to slow it down and talk about that for a second before we go back and really talk about your childhood and your upbringing. But the slave to a thought thing, I mean, some guy thought up one time, I want people to work for me. And now you've got generations of people thinking I have to work for someone. That's the slave to the thought. That's the thought. The thought was 80 years ago, but man, dude.
I'm getting chills. Because it sounds so good.
You put it into words, and then it just made sense.
It sounds so good coming from your mouth, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
That's how spells are cast. That's how blessings are perpetuated. When you are hearing the same message said a different way through a different soul, you know that it's resonating and you have the magic. You're right. When I see somebody working, and I'm not speaking to any of your audience that is working because this is a message for you. If I see somebody working, if I say, you have no worries, man, it's life. You're at a McDonald's, you're a mechanic, you're an engineer, whatever it is, and you're working for somebody else. This is what I tell people all the time. Everything you just said. At one point in time, somebody woke up to the understanding that thoughts become things. They understood that through some kind of metamorphosis or some kind of understanding, they said, if I put my mind to it, I can achieve it. If I ask the universe, not a God, if I just ask the universe who conspires in my favor for what I want, it's going to happen. So at some point, somebody said, I want a mechanic shop, and you know what I want? I want 75 people working for me fixing cars, and I want this to be the biggest, greatest thing, and I want to be a millionaire. And they thought it so well that they believed in it in advance, because that's how you make things happen fast. That's how you manifest. We could talk about that later. But so they made it manifest fast, or it made it manifest, and at some point in time, during that manifestation timeline, somebody else said, and this is how you have to be careful what you ask for. That's why they even have the mantra, be careful. Be in your existence, careful. Be full of care of what you ask for. Words are power. They're the most powerful thing out there. So somebody said, hey, man, I need to pay my bills. I need a job. Can I just have a job, Most High? God, Jesus, Muhammad? And they got what they asked for. And they're living in a manifestation of somebody who asked for something different. Whew.
Dang.
So when you think about that, right?
Yo, dude.
Depth, right? It's depth, though, right?
It's if you realize that you can just make what you want to happen, then you can choose who you want to be.
Woo. Living.
You could be the guy that has 75 under him. Or you could be one of the 75.
You could be one of the 75. And on my journey, I've learned that I remember and I'm going to skip around a little bit. You have to deal with how my mind works if you don't mind.
We got time.
Thank you. So I started this company 5 years ago, right? And my first
And which company is that?
Black Alchemy Solutions.
Right.
So, we could talk about that or we don't have to, but I just want to talk about my first client. Billionaire, self-made billionaire, right? He came across my radar. I prayed for him. I manifested him, right? Because I was like, I need a mentor. I need somebody to tell me what I'm really doing here. So I remember him saying, he looked at me in my eyes, and the first day we met, he was like, this is what we're going to do, and this is how I'd like to do it, and I'd like to use you to do this, because he knew I knew magic, and we could talk about what I do if we don't have to. And I said, okay, but why don't we do it this way? And he looked me dead in my soul. It was not him. It was my ancestors, it was angels who came in through him and said, stop thinking so small. And coming from him, it was like, I used to be a spy. Who are you talking to? Like, and my ego was like, I used to do this and that. Small. I think about nothing but taking over small countries. And then listening to him later as I matured, I said, oh, that's what he was saying. You're thinking as an employee. You're thinking as a small business owner. Be a free agent. Because this guy that we're going to, I'm just going to tiptoe around, he owns a lot of land in a certain state, very small state, but he's self-made. He was same background, was in the Navy, was a protocol officer, got out, started selling bonds, started selling timeshares, and then turned into a billionaire in 5 years. And when I listened to him again, I said, stop thinking so small. So there was some point in time this guy had to say, I don't want these millions. I want $1 billion. And that takes a different
small.
type of...
Millions are big.
They can be.
But he's like, millions are small.
They're millions. And that's how perspective runs everything. Like you said, slave to a thought. We are taught things out of the womb. We come out our mother's gates, and the first thing we do, we're smacked on the back of our butt, and we're told things like oxygen, breath, the rules of this whole universe. You have to breathe oxygen. You have to obey the gravity. The sun is what provides life. Those are the rules of this situation, but those rules can be bent. Just like you learn, okay, if I learn my posture right, there's certain ways you can't get that triangle choke. You're not going to get it. You're going to get a blood choke if my posture is in a certain... That's a bending of the rule. You're not going to understand how to get me off of my balance if my center is always rooted. Those are bending of the rules. Once you learn that these physics of the world, just like thoughts, can be mended and molded, then you can always be that special forces X-Man mother person in the existence of what you live in. That's how I love it. Harriet Tubman, like thinking back to her, like, she was a bad woman, a spy. Yeah. She was doing all these things, but they told everything that she said she couldn't. She's like, you know what? I'm going to listen to these voices in my head that are telling me there's stars up here that I can actually go to, and it's going to get me to freedom. I channel that energy, and I understand it. Yeah. Because when you think about it, there are things that people tell you you're crazy, but in reality, it's because they don't understand it.
Yeah, they really just can't wrap their mind around it, so then it's crazy.
Absolutely. And I love that. I love that because what happens is, like in these conversations that you and I are having, it's you provide light in the darkest places of existence. Yeah. And it's not going to resonate now. Like your listeners, they're not going to pick up on this right now. They're not supposed to because they're not on that frequency. But when they start going through those frequency chambers, just like when you go through the ranks of your belt system and you go from the interstate and white to the next belt, to the next belt, to the blue, to the black, to the gray, those are not really a thing about acumen. It's about your frequency, your ability to process certain responses, reactions, conditions, and meld them into a place that is your own. Take what's useful, disregard what's useless, brutally, right? And create your own. That's alchemy. And
that's what we've done. That's what you've done. You didn't function on this frequency 6 years ago, Yeah. You were high functioning for sure. But it's just a different level of frequency, just like the blue belt, purple belt, red belt, all that,
100%.
So let's get back to the beginning, boss.
Yeah, man.
Where you from? Where were you born?
Yeah.
Why were you in the streets at a young age?
Yeah. So I was born in San Diego, California in 1981. Mother was a Black Panther and a bit of a rebel. And we're not going to get into because I love my mom and she's really cautious about what I say. But I'll say this. My mom is a person that has a very interesting background. And I love you, Mom. But I want to talk about who you are for real. And then my father was a bookie at the time in New York City. Wow. He met with my mom during their things that they were doing when they were rebellious and taking over their small countries, and that's what I just like to call it. And, born in San Diego, 1981, man. Okay. Mom left me with my aunts when I was like 2 years old so she could do the lifestyle that she was living with the Black Panthers and the things that she was doing. Right. And I was raised in New York, so I bring that up so I can have some context about where I'm from.
Yeah, no, yeah, I want it. I want it all. I want it all.
Groovy, I'm going to give it to you. So San Diego is where I was born, but 2 years later, I found myself in New York City with my aunt because my mom was doing what she was doing, and she needed to, she was forced, actually, to a certain extent, to give me to my aunt because she needed to go do what she was doing with the people she was doing it with. And I stayed in New York with my aunt until I was about 3. And then I stayed a little bit longer with my grandmother in New York in the Bronx until I was about 6 or 7. And that's when my father, who was in Atlanta, came and picked me up around 6 or 7. And I stayed with my father until I was about 14 because I got a lot of trouble.
So from 6 to 14 when your dad showed up.
I was a hellraiser. because I didn't trust him.
Well, that's a time where a boy is a hellraiser, really. But you didn't.
Yeah, and I didn't really. You know, what's it called when you when an animal connects with a human, you don't imprint. Yeah, so I didn't imprint with my father.
Oh yeah,
you know, I didn't.
He wasn't there for the formative years, you know.
Exactly, and of course, as an adult now in my 40s, I'm starting to understand the reasoning of the whys because I never really asked them.
Right.
I like the mystique of my chaotic background, but now I had to put the connections as to why. Like you said, it was my formative years. I didn't really have that connection with him, and being the disciplinarian he didn't like my lack of conformity. So it was a very tumultuous relationship. Because when he would get in his mind that he was going to put me in control, I'd say, you know what, this is only going at 7, 8, 9. First time I ran away, I was 7 years old. True story, police officer picks me up about 2 miles away from my home. 7 years old, in Union City, Riverdale, Georgia. And the cop was like, where do you live? And I told her, I was like, we live in these projects. And she was like, that's 2 miles away. How did you get here? And I said, I trucked it. I walked it. And you're not sending me back to my father. Literally dropped me off, gets to my father, knocks on the door. Here's your son. I go up, I jump out of the window, ran away again, dead of winter. Because I was not because I was running away from a problem. I didn't feel like I belonged there. And when I run away, I started learning things. I learned how to survive. I learned that I can manipulate people.
Yeah.
And not in a bad way.
No, you're just figuring it out, though.
I figured it out. I figured
it out as a young dude.
Exactly. Knocking on doors, 10 o'clock at night. I take off my shirt. Oh, what's going on, young man? And I'm like, oh, wow, if I use this tone, I can see their sympathy. Oh, I can get some food and I could go do this. And because I did it a lot of times, so I didn't run away like once or twice. I think if you were to tally it up, it's probably like 70.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it got to a point where my father was like, leave him out there, And I was like, yeah, leave me out there. And so, as time progressed, yeah, leave me out there. I mean, of course, there was some physical attributes to his discipline that I didn't agree with, that I felt were really aggressive. And that's where my first fear came. And that's why I got into that's where I'm at right now. I love my father. I love Raymond Tate. I love you. Because he taught me my first fear. The first thing I ever feared was a man, a black man. Every time I saw a black man, I felt like I have to negotiate you because my father always negotiated me. And, he, at whatever age he was, and I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I'm like, well, I'm going to have to learn leverage because this man is always going to be bigger than me. I'm never going to really throw a punch that can really hurt him back. And those thoughts were going through my mind because it wasn't.
At a young age, you're still very smart, very aware. You're seeing that these kind of thoughts, they're smart thoughts. So it's no wonder that you're here now if that's how you were thinking back then. A lot of kids are just running away and then doing the drugs and not really thinking kind of deep or really understanding themselves. Knocking on doors is genius for a kid who's broke. Knocking on a door and taking your shirt off and being a little bit scared, just being real, but also knowing this is going to work. That's really smart, like on an emotional level. It sucks that you had to do that. That sucks. You shouldn't have had to do that. But that's where you were at. And then it's just fascinating to see someone find out who they are and then what they do to do it. People do crazy things all the time when they're figuring out who they are. This is fascinating.
Yeah, man. And thank you for that. And, that's the first time I've actually heard it that way because at the end of the day, here's what I looked at it as. I put myself in a situation where I had to either, as they say, shit or get off the pot. And I enjoyed that because it wasn't a situation where, that's why even to this day, stimuli engages me. When people are freaked out or they're losing their control, I'm like, oh, this is my happy, sweet spot. This is where I can show up. This is where you need me.
Chaos.
I thrive in chaos because it gives me a center. It gives me, and I'm going to use a movie reference. There's a movie where the guy, he's learning how to be an assassin or whatever. And it's with that lady, Angelina Jolie.
Oh, Wanted, when they're curving the bullet.
And he slows down and looks at all this stuff's going around. And he puts the gun to his head and he's able to look at the bee and he sees the bee flap its wings. I'm like,
shoots its wings off.
They're in my head. I get this. Because when the stimuli comes, that's when I can start focusing in because I know that, through my thoughts, I can see out of any situation. And that I learned that as a young kid. And you touch something I really want to touch on really quick, which I'm going to expose a lot about me on that journey. Of course, I got into the streets after about, doing it around 10, 11, 12, you start maturing in your craft. So I was one person at home. I was one person at school. But in the streets, I was a different person. I wasn't the gangbang, throwing them. I wasn't that guy.
Right.
I know them, of course. I know my books, and I know my books and knowledge. I know all that stuff. Even at 43, it's stuff you can't really. I could write. I could throw up, but that's not what I'm saying that for. It gave me it's a code, and everything is a codec in life. Everything that we do is a codec. So it gave me the codec of how to be a Crip, right? At that time. And when I go to juvenile, I know how to associate with the right types of people and the wrong types of people. I play games. I learned that game until I learned who I was. And that, when you said having the attention behind your actions, I didn't learn that until around 12. And that's when I really probably started delving in drugs, like marijuana specifically. I always understood that I needed to do a drug with a reason. And if I didn't, I would end up like those people that I was around. And that bled into my current day. Like, you're talking to a guy who has done every drug that has known to man, minus like ibogaine, and I can't wait to try that one day. The psychotic, it's like ayahuasca, but
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, ibogaine. It's like ayahuasca, but it's the African version. Have you heard of ayahuasca?
Really? Yeah, I've heard of ayahuasca. Yeah,
love that one.
I like watching Aaron Rodgers talk about it.
Oh, it's a beautiful DMT.
You've done
DMT.
that? You've done that?
I've done. So when I say I've done every drug,
right?
I wasn't being. There was no
For
hyperbole,
real.
no sarcasm.
He's for real.
Yeah,
he's for real.
Yeah, like, and I've never shot up heroin. I've never shot it up.
Okay.
I've sniffed it. I'm very transparent about that.
No, yeah. I've done a lot of coke.
Yeah,
I've done a lot of coke.
Yeah.
It's just not good for you and stuff like that. You find out,
Yeah, I lived in Latin. I'm gonna leave it at that with the coke conversation. I lived in Latin America. I lived in Honduras.
What more do you need?
While I was working for an agency that I had to take a break from because of how good the coke was. I'm joking. I'm just being serious. I'm being serious.
Hey, baby.
Excuse me. And I just to touch on, I'm not going to belabor this point.
No, that's fine.
When you move with intention, it differentiates you from people who move in chaos. Just like in jiu-jitsu, when you get the new guy on the mat, never played the game before, never understand the rolling and tolling, he's going to move. He has no intention behind his moves except I just want to keep on my feet, or whatever he has, or she or they have in their mind. That was one of my first things against jiu-jitsu. I was like, you're going to get me? When you get that close to me, I'm going to show you how pleasurable it's going to be. And that's because that's how, before jiu-jitsu, which was just recent for me. It's not an old fad for a lot of people, like it is with a lot of people. I came from a school where, I'm comfortable in the phone booth. We love phone booth fighting.
Yeah.
Get close to me. I'm using everything because I understand the anatomy of the human being. Like, while the blood choking and the taking away my oxygen, that's one thing. But I know your sinuses. I understand the 14 meridians. I understand how everything works. I played Demok for a while. So you get close to me, I'm going to show you. That was my thought process. So I remember the first time I rolled. And it was with, anyway, it doesn't matter. I was with a group, and I was like, oh, this is a whole different level of existence. You guys, if you know what you're doing, this can be deadly if I don't have a weapon and if I'm not in a situation,
Right.
So I'm speaking from that context. If you don't move with intention, you're going to move into chaos.
Yes.
So with drug usage or alcohol usage, or even in spooling your role, it's like whether it's engaging in other vices, or sexual in your sex, with your woman or whatever. If you go out and you do things without intention, you're going to be a product, a slave to the chaos.
This does a lot. This doesn't do a lot, guys. This does a lot. You're moving with intention.
You're moving with intention, and that says a lot, though. He's right, though.
Hey, I ain't wrong.
No, he's not. He's not.
It's funny.
But when you move with intention, it differentiates. One of my mantras, Most High, dear Heavenly Father, spiritual ancestors, spiritual mother, spiritual father, allow me to be the light in the darkest places of the universe. As I rise today, I rise forever. When I say these things, I mean them. So when I say, allow me to be the brightest light in the darkest places, one thing that I figured one of my purposes is to help people in the darkest places when they're shooting that needle up their arm, or they just can't get out of a repetitive cycle of whether they just came out of PTSD and they just are natural born killers and they only know how to live that lifestyle, or they only know how to live a certain lifestyle. Because the universe has given me so many different planes of existence. Yeah. Where, I've been to Harvard, I've worked at the Pentagon, I've worked at places where I can't even mention this. I've done things that I can't even talk about. And I literally mean that, not in a hyperbolic sense where it's like, I just want to be super. No, I've done things that you've only heard about in movies. But I've also done things in the other movies where, in the, Boys in the Hood, those kind of movies where I have that that range of experience where I can see people differently. I can see you without judging you, where some people are naturally predisposed to judging. They say, oh, look at that heroin addict, or look at that crazy Marine who just does these things, or look at that whore in the streets. I've been a pimp. So I've seen it. So I'm like, I see where you are and I see how you're thinking. Allow me to show you that side of me so that I can be a friend instead of a foe. And then let's walk this out of here together.
Yeah.
And I've done that numerous times in my life. And I think that's what got me into the business I'm in now, where I'm like, I'm just a fixer, man. You know what I mean?
That's what I really like to get into, is your like one thing that kind of like gets you going. Because pretty much all of us have like one really specific thing that we're good at. I'm really good at having a good time. So I've predicated my entire life off of having a good time. And in that, there's learning and there's growth and there's teaching, there's business, there's finance, all that stuff. Yeah. But like, so you said you're a fixer.
My spark.
Go deep on that.
Yeah.
That's what we like here.
My spark is fixing. My spark is identifying the knot that people see and seeing it as a straight line. I don't see the problems that people see because of the threshold of pain, the threshold of endurance of life. I see things through a different lens. I don't have the attention span like other people. Other people would classify it as ADD. I don't like to associate tags because I know those are slave thoughts as well.
Yeah. So can't label them.
No, you can't, because it's a power. So
you see what's going on here, people? There's something that happens when you're free.
Absolutely. You take off the chains. You unchain yourself. So my spark is my ability to see people without judgment. And because of that, I can see them for who they are, because we all put on a mask. We put on a character suit when we wake up, and we choose what character we're going to play in the role and the stage that we're going to be in. And most people aren't able to see those character clothings. They only see they only see the character clothing. They only see the actor that's stowing. They're not able to see the spirit behind them. So when I see you, like I'm looking at you now, I can see you, and then I can see you, right? And when I see you, I can say, do I want to reflect with you, or do I just want to observe? But most people don't do that. They see somebody and say, judge, white boy, tattoos, little flexy, he's very loose, he must be having a good time. Yeah, and they start putting these predisposed judgments, and they can't see you. So they can put on the show of a friend. They can put on a show as somebody who's not a foe, but they're not really seeing you. I see people, and I'm able to put on a show. I've learned that I'm able to put on, because of what I used to do and because of the life I used to live, I can put on a mask. I can put on a suit, not physical, vernacular, how I position myself, how I talk to you, how I negotiate your paralinguistics with mine. I can put it on to sound so familiar that you're looking at a mirror, and then people become comfortable with me. And when they do that, I get to play with them in a good way. Yes. I learned that skill provides value when people are in trouble and they can't go out and ask or to the right person for the right help because they don't know how to identify their suit with somebody that can provide that solution, because they still have to put up their mask. With me, I'm like, listen, we just had sex last night. Stop playing. Come on. Now we broke that ice already. Stop playing. Now what's the problem? And now when I say sex, I don't mean intercourse. I mean, we've had verbal jujitsu. We've gone into the depths of chokeholds and strangulations and understand the pain. And I've pushed you through these limits. Now we've both reached a level of orgasm. When you come up for that first gasp of air and you made a mistake, that's orgasmic. So now that we've been there together, let's talk. What the hell's we going through? What's the problem? Yeah. That's my spark, I believe.
Dude, that's beautiful. And that's how you really build relationships with people. That's how you really find out. I mean, when you come from a background like you don't know who to trust. We were talking about this a little bit yesterday, me and the hooded ninja over here. And you don't know who to trust coming out of it, So when you figure out that manipulating people is one of your like nurture, like nature, one of those things that's just kind of in you. It's innate. You're really kind of good at it, and you understand things, and you kind of take that as a captive thought in your older days. Then you understand, like, oh, this is just how I find out who's about it, who's really like real, who's not trustworthy, who I really want to use. You find out if you want to be the good guy or not. You find out if you want to be the bad guy.
You find out. That's a beautiful way to say it.
You find out.
It's a journey.
We're all humans. We don't really know who we are or what we want to do. You get a taste of things, and I think there truly are good people and bad people.
I disagree with you, respectfully.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I think, if I may, are we chewing on this?
Yeah. Let me finish it.
Oh, yeah, my apologies.
And let me predicate it with I don't, solidly believe in it, but let's just, for the sake of argument, let's go with, So then I think people are good, and there are good people and bad people, because some people do things and they say, wow, that didn't feel good, but they do it a lot more. So then at some point you have to say, this guy might feel guilt. He might feel shame at doing what he's doing in life, but he is not changing. When does he become the bad guy? And when can I say, but let me help you. Let me save you. Let me show you that you're wrong. Is there an ability for the bad guy to see that, or is the bad guy just the bad guy? I don't know. What do you think?
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that perspective.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I'm about to chew on it with you. So in the line of work that I'm in, and I'm just prefacing it with that, one thing I had to learn early on is that good and bad are perspectives based off of my ability to be observing. My ability not to put the less judgment that I put onto a situation, the less good or bad that person is, and it just is. I think good or bad are paradigms of duality that we chew so that we can associate what makes us feel good and what makes us feel bad. There is evil, and then there's evil and there's bad. I think bad is a relative term that is a term of comfort. If you don't, I've seen too many demons. I've negotiated too many demons, meaning I'm friends with demons, like my own demons more specifically.
Yeah.
But even in the demons and others, when I see them, I don't say that that's a bad person. I say that's a person negotiating a circumstance that doesn't either know how to fight it, or they're finding comfort in that chaos that they feel so comfortable, but they don't know it's toxic. So, you got the school shooters, or you got the people that poison a lot of people. Are they bad people? I don't judge them that way. I used to. Because I'm just going to mention something that may be uncomfortable, but I love you. I'm not talking about you.
I love this.
Okay.
I love this.
So,
I need someone else's brain.
Oh, groovy. So, no, groovy. At one point in time, not long ago in America, it was legal to accost African Americans. It was legal to enslave them. It was legal to do these things. Does that make it good? No. Put yourself in 1772. Okay. Was it good? Some people had a moral compass and said, no, man, that's just not right. But some people said, the law says it, then let's go with it. That made them good in their perspective. That's what made them feel good. We're not going to digest the morality and the emotion of it, but I use that as an example and a baseline, just simply to say, good and bad is relative. It's based off of the perspective and the understanding and the ego of a specific person that has control over others. So when I sit back and I see somebody that's robbing banks, and I have a very close tie to bank robbery in my life pattern, and I mean that. Bank robbery, things like I'm very close tie to that. That's all I'm gonna say. I have the ability, just because of my life pattern, to say, so why are we robbing the banks? Is it the trick? You like the trick, you like the flip, you like to bypass the security, you like the fear of others, you like to smell that. Is that is an addiction you haven't negotiated yet? Because there's an addiction to fear. Yeah. When you smell it in other people, you're like, I can make that happen. Yeah. Or is it the money? Are you doing it out of necessity? Being able to lay those out into a platform in front of you and say, okay, so this is the demon you chose to make this choice. I look at you differently now. Now, if you're doing it because you are addicted to some kind of weakness in another person, that means that you have a weakness in you that needs to be exercised. Does that make sense? So I don't look at it.
That's not a bad person. He's just
it's just like the needle or the pipe or whatever, addictive substance out there. I don't look at that action of getting high is especially if you watch somebody and they can't control it. They're not necessarily moving in negativity. They don't know how to negotiate it. It's the same thing as being a blue belt or a black belt in whatever art you're in, and you see the same student repeating the same. You just told them, arm goes over the cross, pull over the leg, leveraging it, and you just told them, and they're not doing it. And you're like, What is wrong? What is that problem? And then you realize, they've been hacked. There's a program running in their mind that's telling them they have to go this way over and over and over. And you can go talk until your blood turns green. The only way you're going to unhack them is you have to get into their programming. You have to see how they're thinking and how they're negotiating the situation, find out where that hack was, and then unravel it. Same thing with drug addicts, same thing with people who like to kill people, same thing with people that like to exploit people, same thing with business people. It's the same game. We all have programs, so we run programs and scripts every day. Every time you hear somebody say, "What's up, dude?" and you hear the same guy, "What's up, man?" That's a script. So if I can see that script, that's a hack That's a hack that's going on. If I can see that, I know how you're programmed. So I'm not going to look at you in the same lens as a cop may look at you. You know, I know how, if I drop my pants and I put on the flag and I do this and I have gold teeth, for Christ's sake. So if I smile too hard, you're going to think I'm a thug anyway. I don't care how articulate I am.
Right.
You know, well, listen, officer, I need you to really understand. No, motherfucker, you get me. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I said,
retweet, dude.
Retweet, you know, but legit. So that's why I keep these things in my, and I don't mean to keep saying I don't want to take over the conversation in that regard, but
No, you're fine.
thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm having a great time.
Thank you. I'm happy about that. Literally, I'm happy we're having a good time. When you see the programming, and you see that there are programming shades and lenses that people see through.
Yeah.
They look through their programming, so they see good or bad in that lens.
Yeah.
How their father, mother raised them and say, we're Christians, we're Muslims, we're going to see things this way. If they're not praying and they're not doing the 10%, then they're demons.
Right.
That programming establishes the polarity of good or bad. Does that make them good or bad? I have looked into the eyes of, I've done a lot of things in my life where people, if I were to say it into their face and show you exactly what I've done, you would say, that was bad. But I see the necessity in all things evil.
Dang.
I see the necessity in it.
There's some necessity. It had to happen.
Yes. I mean, without talking about me, I'm going to say it like this, and I'm just bringing it from this perspective I live. I understand necessary evil. You're not going to perpetuate any kind of unjust actions on any demographic of the world, and I'm involved, that I don't feel that I can use any resource and any capability to negotiate you, and I will, and I have. If it causes the freedom of those oppressed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the whole point is there's a point to it. Like, you're not just doing these things because there's, you know, you have your own agenda. Maybe, but mostly you're seeing a need being, you know, and you're understanding that evil needs to
be negotiated. And empowering people, not necessarily, because I'm 41 now. You know, in my 20s and 30s, I was a riot. I was a person that you could feel being around. Like, it was just like, oh, shit, I don't even know about this guy's energy. I'd make you nervous.
Yeah.
My calm would make you nervous. My not give a fuck attitude, like Mystical said, would make you feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But now at 41, I'm saying, I would rather empower you with that magic. I'd rather show you that these limits and limitations that you think you live in, these chains that you're not seeing, but they're controlling you. That's why I do what I do now. Is I want to show you that you can live past these fears and illusions, and showing you how to defeat demons that you may see oppressing other people is the best magic that you can do. That's the legacy that that's my agenda today. My agenda today is, let me show you how magical you are.
Yeah.
They keep telling you to shut up and you're a woman and not you, but you know,
no,
the client I have now, you know, you're a woman and then you live in this man town and they're going to just always try to step on you. Let me show them who the bigger dick is, and then I'm going to show you how to pull yours out, and I'm going to show you how to use it when you need to, and I'm going to show you that it's okay to be there.
Yeah.
Put the blood in your throat. Speak with it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Because then some people, most people, 99% of people that I interact with are not about the life that they present.
Yes.
Meaning, to the extent of it, meaning, like in this conversation, I'm willing to die for everything that I believe in. And I mean that in a positive way.
Yeah.
Meaning, if it comes down to it, gun to your head, let's play this game, because I'm going to run it. I'm not going to say, I'm not going to submit. I'm going to run it. We're going to run the scenario. You're going to have to pull that trigger.
We're going.
This is what I believe. Right. We're go time. When the ninja behind the camera says, go, and you're in the mats, it's go time. There's no stop. There's that clock. It's motherfucker, you got to play it. You know what I mean? You got to play the clock.
Yeah.
So in the same sense, that's how I believe about life. If you're not ready to live that life and really and I'm not going to say it for your audience, but I'm going to say it for me. If you're not willing to die for it, then the fuck are you living for? Like, and I mean that.
Honestly, no, I agree 100%. If you're just doing things every day, but I mean, I asked somebody the other day, what do you do? And they said, this. And I said, do you like it? And they said, I don't want to do this. I don't like doing that. And that makes me tired. I said, so stop doing all of them. What am I going to do then? Be happier.
It's a choice.
It was really easy, and they couldn't get over it. So I tried to hack their programming, and it didn't work because I'm pretty sure they're back. But that was a fast conversation. So if you spend more time and build relationship, you can hack more properly, right? So if I'm not about trying to help that person, then stop talking right now. You know, if I didn't hit him up on Snapchat a couple days after and be like, hey, I really hope that you figure your shit out because I believe in you. Stop talking right now. You know? just be about what you think you're about, what you say you're about, you know? We are about building relationships. So we're about it. If anybody came in here right now and said anything to us about how we live our lives and said that we're fake, it's like, well, from what you're saying and what I believe too, anybody that just has a problem with conviction, just step up. Like, step up and then see what happens. You find out if you're actually for real or where you need work. And it's fun. It's more fun. It's more fun being transparent too. If you're not ready, you're not ready. If you're not about it, you're not about it.
That's why I'm a hacker. That's why you're a hacker too. I love it, man. I love talking to the people of the same flesh. Fist pump. Yeah, I say.
You see that? That was
I feel that because he's a hacker. You're only going to know what your true capabilities are is when you have to get your shit pushed in, so to speak. When you have to step up to, he's like, okay, well, I'm not about that life right now, but I'm about this life right at this level.
Boom.
And then if there's a life, what made me have to go down here? What was that weak point? What was that flaw? What am I afraid of? Because fear's not real, right? Circumstances, situations, pain, those are real things, but just like in boxing or any kind of combat situation, most people, when I talk to people and I'm really trying to evaluate where their fear is, and I'm like, and I dissect it, they're not afraid of what it is. They're afraid of the thought that they create about the circumstance of what they think they're going to go through over what the actual thing is. Getting punched in the face doesn't hurt. Getting shot, that may hurt, but it's a temporary pain. It's something you can negotiate. The thought that you create, anticipating it or being trepidatious about it, that is much more painful than anything you go. You know what I mean?
It's the same thing with the addict. You're chasing the first high you ever had. You're not chasing the high you're going to get right now. It's not the same one.
It's never going to be that. And
you're so scared of the first punch you ever felt, you're trying to avoid it. But you get punched in the face, and you're going to be fine.
You're going to realize your jaw's not made out of glass. It sure ain't. And everything in this human, in this earth suit is what I call it. This suit that we're in has the capability of doing some very super powerful things. You can condition your body to take punches, to take chokes, to take pepper spray, to take pain. It's how you interpret it. So when you don't step into the pain, when you don't embrace that life is pain, and then when you can get pleasure from that, and I don't mean pleasure like orgasmic, I mean at least a dopaminergic. Woo! Got that from Joe Huberman. A dopaminergic.
Who'd you get that from?
Huberman. Is Huberman that guy?
Andrew Huberman.
Andrew
Huberman. Yeah, the Stanford neuroscientist.
That guy, dopaminergic. I'm like, what is that?
Dopaminergic.
Google with my book. Google.
Yo, that guy's fantastic to listen to, huh?
Yeah, he is. He's taught me a lot. That's why I do. I do the cold.
You do the cold plunges
because of him.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
He sold me on it, but I'm a little bit of a bitch.
No, it changed your life.
I know it will.
No, it'll change legit.
Talk about it.
No, man, legit.
You do it in the morning. You do it at night. You do it every day.
I do it in the morning when it's the most uncomfortable. You know, just like hunting with women. Like when I'm chasing, hunting. I don't call it chasing because I don't chase anything. I attract it. But
there we go.
When I'm hunting a woman, I anticipate the pain, the denial, and then I say, I'm going to turn that into my pleasure point. Same thing with this water plunging. You get into it, you're like, oh, it's first thing in the morning. I don't feel like getting up. I'm at the point where my bones are starting to ache, right? I'm like, oh, okay, well, I do Tai Chi. I'm better than that. Anyway, so that's what I was like, I'm better than that. You know, we can negotiate this in our mind. Thoughts become things, remember? Practice what you fucking preach. And so I sit in there in the tub, and if I'm on a journey where I really need to feel myself, and what I mean by that is if I need to touch the insides of my existence, I'll go get some ice from the corner store, and I'll throw it in there, like 5 bags, and then throw it on cold, and then you put the timer up, and just like everything else, have you been through a crisis situation in your life? Like, have you had to fight for your life? Have you rolled with this guy a few times where he's really not mad at you and shit?
I played sports my whole life. I've been in a bunch of real weird situations. I've been in some, phone booths, stuff like that.
Okay.
So
was your life in danger?
I wouldn't say really. I wouldn't say I've ever really been in a situation like that.
Did you know it?
I understand the feeling, and I understood that it wasn't a life or death. But when you're in those, especially when I was in those, it feels like you're in life or death.
Okay, so that feeling when you decided, because that's the mammalian brain or the reptilian brain, where there's fight or flight. You chose to fight or fly, or have you done both?
Yes, both. Definitely, I'd say I've done both.
So yeah, don't think whatever. Yeah, yes, we make these choices. So in those moments where you said, "Oh, it is what it is. Here's my line. I can't cross it." let's get it. When you made those decisions in those moments, it's the same dumping effect that I do when I jump in that water. It's like, this is going to be sucky. This is going to be very uncomfortable. But I remember, once you become familiar with the biology, or not the biology, the mechanics of what happens, the mechanics of pain is a secret of life, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
When you learn how the pain works, it becomes less pain. So when I jump in, I'm like, oh, that's just my body telling my blood to get away from that appendage to go protect my heart. So it's just translating into a little bit of discomfort. It's painful as fuck. And then, oh, that's just the mechanics of my lungs taking deeper breaths so they can have more oxygen in my
There you go. Yeah.
Then I can control that. And then the discomfort is, oh, this is just cold. I'm not gonna die today. Like, are you gonna die today? No, they've done worse to me. You know what I'm saying? I've done worse to myself. Okay, but yeah. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good. This is fantastic. I'm just loving how you talk, You got me when you were like, oh, this is just cold.
Yeah, it's just cold. Like,
it's just cold. It's just cold. Your body's telling you all these things. It's pretty much screaming, get out, stop. This is too hard.
But it's not.
No, it's not.
No, but it's not. But that's the thing. I don't think the body's telling you that. I think that's how sometimes we interpret the circumstances of our life.
There we go.
We think that it's telling us to run. Fucking fly. That guy is 17 feet tall and he's got 2 knives and he's got an AR-15. You need to run. And then you're like, but he's got more mass and he can't move as fast. There you go. And he can't think like I think, or she can't think. Fuck that. That's not what you're telling me to run. You're saying run forward and go for these different points. It's how you interpret those signals. The same thing, fight or flight. Are you going to choose to stay down and play it out?
Yeah.
Because it's not, I don't care who I offend in this one. I say it with respect, and I mean it when I say it.
Yeah, no,
I don't care if you're a black belt, a green belt, you're a Delta operator, you're a CAG operator, and I know all of you, like I know you personally. I know people who have no training that can take these people just because of how they negotiate their mind. And I know this to be true because I know that 99% of crisis negotiation has nothing to do with your training because you throw it out. You throw out all your training. You only perform at your lowest level of training. Fact. You could be a black, but does that make sense?
Say it again.
I will. Yes, sir. I'll say it again. I love it. I like the way you said it. Say it again. Oh, yeah. Say it again. So, just gave me some flashbacks. I will say it again. You're cool, man.
I'm having fun, dude.
Yeah, man. This is fantastic. So you can go be a black belt. Let's use the word black belt because everybody knows, your audience knows black belts.
Yeah.
Just because you're a black belt and you've been a black belt for 5 years, in a crisis situation, your life is on the line. The way your brain works, it's going to go to your first white belt. Like if you don't perform and constantly train your black belt inner workings, the maneuvers, the situations, the circumstances that you're in, your lowest level of training is where you're going to perform at in a crisis, not the black belt level. I don't care what you think. Like,
No, that's interesting. That's fantastic.
That guy like that I don't track jiu-jitsu, but there's a guy that's very famous, Gordon. Like those guys, the gray-haired dude.
Oh,
Gordon Ryan.
Oh yeah.
Follow him on Instagram.
So even these guys, and I'm not tagging anybody, but the Dan Inosantos, the Bruce Lees, the legends of the arts. The reason why they always perform the simple tasks like they do, like what did Bruce Lee say? It was so profound. I do not fear a person that knows 1,000 different moves and practice it once. I'm worried about the guy that does one kick 1,000 times. Because that's the lowest level of training you have. So if you're a black belt and and I'm just saying this, right? I'm not speaking from something I read in a book. I'm talking about, take off my shirt. I'll show you the scars and the bruises and the stab wounds and the knife fights I've been in. I've been engaged with much more trained from an academy perspective, but not in warfare. There's a difference. When you go into stress and you turn into your brain turns into this is fight or flight. Now we're getting neo-mammalian. Now I have choices and I want to chart. I don't want to get into flight or flight. I'm here, so I have to spread out and see what I can use. But you're stressed and you're in duress and your life is in danger. And then you have allowed fear to inject herself into one of your veins a little bit. So you have a little bit of fear going through it, and then cortisol's going through as well. Then you're starting to really think about all the other circumstances, and then you get into your tunnel and you start performing. That performance that you do, your life or death dance, it's not going to be a black or black belt life or death dance. If you watch it, like the reason why you get police officers 20 years in the force, yeah, they've been doing this. A street cop, you've been doing it over and over and over. But just because you're a black belt doesn't mean you're going to be able to perform in a crisis. You have to learn how to fight in a crisis and learn what you do in crisis. Do you know what you do in crisis?
Right.
Most people don't.
Right.
We can go up here and roll up here with all of the best students up here that you have and the best teachers you have. And I'm saying this with respect. It might come looking for when we can play too, but I'm just saying, I say with respect. Put a gun in the game, not on the floor. Like put your life is at risk. Like put that scenario in play. You're going to perform differently.
Totally different.
But if you train yourself and you know your weaknesses, like I know that I freeze up here. I know that my stomach, when I allow myself and I don't breathe and I get in my situations where I start breathing with my chest and not with my stomach, that's that fear turning up and I'm going to move slower. When you don't know those mechanics, then I don't care how many times you've rolled, how many times you've done these scenarios and these drills, you're not going to perform at that level. You have to consistently perform to raise your black belt training into your black belt in crisis operation. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes so much sense. It was articulated perfectly. It makes so much sense. I mean, I don't even need to say anything, but I will. I mean, yeah, if you're the best of the best and you think you're the best of the best, but you don't challenge yourself in real ways, and if you don't understand what a real challenge is, then get out. Like, if you don't challenge yourself in real ways and you say you're the best of the best, you're not the best of the best because you don't perform like the best of the best. You get into real situations where there are people on the ground every day fighting for their life. They're fighting for survival. They're fighting for maybe a cause, you know? Those are real black belts in life. Those are people that you need to be really scared of. Those are who you need to respect on the highest level because they don't even tell you they're a black belt. They don't have that set up. They just perform to the best of their ability in whatever situation they're in. They've just been put in rough ass situations their whole fucking life, you know?
And then you take, on that same note, you take the guy or the woman that's not trained, but they know war. They know crisis. That's all they've been doing. And they've never been trained. But then you go train them in that. So now you've equipped a whole different type of human being. You've taken a person that has dealt on the edge of life in crisis, and now you've equipped them with a knowledge that they can equip themselves with versus the average person, and I say this with respect, that goes into these art studios to become better versions of themselves, right? And that's a great thing. I'm saying it with love and respect.
You're fine. Talk your shit.
I am about to. I'm about to lay it down thick. So you take those people that go in just because they want to get in shape. They want to handle situations better in their lives. Yeah, I get it. But they've only used that methodology in their mind, so when it comes to the crisis, they may be better equipped than their opponent, but when it comes to life or death against the person that we put in the first scenario who is a who deals in death, who's a death dealer, who's dealt in crisis, they understand the biomechanics of fear, they understand the biomechanics of what happens when you're getting yourself in a life or death situation, and then you've equipped them with a white belt understanding of whatever technology or system you have, and then you take that black belt, they're going to annihilate that black belt every time. Every time. That's why you look at the military, you look at special forces or any kind of combat situation training. They do repetition over and over and over. And then the field training exercise, they want you to get familiar with the feeling of how you're losing control so that you can turn that lack of control into a superpower. Oh, you know what I mean?
That's what they do. That's how they train you.
100%. 100%. That's why
putting you in a situation where you're losing control and then making you get the control back.
Work it out. Get it. Oh, so, and that's why I look at, I used to tell people.
It's beautiful.
I used to talk to people and like, hey man, about fighting, because everybody wants to, ego, testosterone. We'll talk about fighting. I'm like, I don't fight. I'm back in my 20s, maybe, but in a situation, I don't look at things like that. I look at them scenarios. I will negotiate you, and if that negotiate means that I have to remove a certain element of your capability of function so that I function, I'm using words here. I'm not going to jail ever. Go, dude. I got a good lawyer. But it's not about that. I'm not going to fight you.
I like how you put that though.
Because I'm not going to fight you. Fighting is a choice. Fighting is an agreement between two people. I have a problem, you have a problem, or we're in this tournament and we're going to have these rules. There ain't no goddamn rules. I'm an alchemist. I'm going to fly. You're going to try to roll over here and do your little thing. I'm going to fly, and I'm going to use all types of things that I've learned to negotiate you because I don't believe in rules. I believe in the safety of myself. I don't believe in. I understand chaos, but I understand that if I deploy and if there's a situation and you just think we have a problem, okay, well you have a problem first and foremost. I don't have a problem with you.
Right.
Now, if you bring that problem over here and I decide, and I have to choose because this is a choice, and I decide that we have a problem, I decide that we have a problem. I'm not going to engage you on the playing field that you present. You want to fight here and you want to put up your hands and you want to do that? That's your rules.
Right.
Do what you do. If you look at me the wrong way and I take offense to it, not look.
Right.
If you accost me the wrong way and I take offense to it or I look at it as life preservation is in it, I am not fighting by the same rule. I'm not negotiating in the same wheel space you are. You think that it's illegal to bash your head into this, whatever. I don't.
Right.
Everything is a weapon. Everything is a weapon. Words, time, space, equipment. Everything is a weapon. So while you're thinking, ego, I'm thinking, if you keep moving that way, I'm getting real comfortable.
Right.
So you're framing up, I'm getting real comfortable. I don't care where you're coming with it. I'm about to enact, because there are weapons in warfare. There's weapons. I'm going to leverage them. That's how it works.
To give some context, this is the
hooded ninja. We're not saying his name.
Yeah, okay. Prove it.
to give some context, you have a extensive military background. Can you explain how, if I'm a martial artist and I've never met a guy with the extensive military background that you have, to say these things kind of sounds crazy, right? But you aren't crazy.
No.
You're a legitimate opponent when it comes to these things. So can you give us some more context on what your experiences have been coming up through that?
Yes, for sure.
Pause. Hit record. Stop it, and then hit record again because we're at an hour. So I don't want that to stop. Make sure we have 2. Perfect. Now we're good? Okay. Alrighty.
Wonderful question. So it's interesting. I appreciate first and foremost for you expressing that sounded crazy. Because I didn't see it sounding crazy. But let's play with it. Let's chew on that. When you get in the ring every day, and I'm going to answer your question. When you get in the ring every day, you're getting inside of a cycle. Like even the MMA, you're getting inside of a cycle where you may be a badass in that ring, even in the streets. You have an up on the people that don't know warfare, right? They don't understand how war and crisis works. So when you're negotiating somebody on the streets, for instance, versus somebody that is well-trained or well-lubricated in the arts of chaos and fuckery, let's just use that for now, for all intents and purposes. Here's the 2 differences that I've seen. And we'll go into the actual circumstances I've been in. I can see when somebody's framed up with a training. I can see it because they go into their training. Tuck your chin, protect your internal organs, raise up, get in your frame. This is where you get your maximum amount of power. You can see that. Those are the rules. They start to encode themselves with the rules, like a program, just like hacking. They encode themselves with the rules, and okay, bam. Those rules, if they don't train edge blades, if they don't train how the mechanics of this rope can be, or this towel can be leveraged as a defensive shield, or just so they have that mental elasticity to where any situation they're presented with can be used as a defense or an offense, then that person that I'm negotiating with is still fighting in that mentality of, this is a fight. You throw a blow, I'm gonna throw a blow. I'm gonna try to get you on the ground, I'm gonna try to do these things. Person that's trained in the art of protecting life in crisis, or a well-trained military or person, or let's just use a sentinel type of individual who has that type of experience, it's to win. It's to negotiate the threat. It's not to fight you. I'm not fighting you. Why would I fight you? You want to fight? You want to throw in the streets, you want to throw arms and back and forth and punch and then win. I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to neutralize you, or I'm going to remove whatever I can. I'm not saying that there aren't martial arts that train in that capacity, Krav Maga, Krav Haga, even jiu-jitsu to a certain extent, but you can still see the limits to a degree in these systems, because that's what they are. They're systems. You learn in certain schools of thought that these are just tools. I know how to move in this circumstance, but I'm not going to get attached to it. You have to be liquid, and you have to understand that a fight, when you decide to engage at a level where it's life versus life, there are no rules. There are no cage fight rules. There are no, tap outs. There are none of that. And I'm not saying that doesn't work, but in a combat situation, all of this here, like this is a weapon-rich environment. Like right now in the scenario, and that's how I think. I look at all of this all the time. I look at the distance that we have, how much time these are the things that I think about, right? Just because of my life trauma and my life experience. I look at the weapons around me. I look at how I can leverage them, how they can be leveraged against me, and how fast I can act in my relaxed state to use them to negotiate the circumstances around me versus, I believe, in the circumstances I've been in, the people that want to fight or the fighters, because you have brawlers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That does make sense. If I'm a normal person listening to this, to hear someone say that they're constantly looking around for weapons, things like that, is not normal, right? So who are you? Who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? It sounds insane. It sounds drastic. It's crazy. I would love to get more insight. Who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We could play with that. So
Why does your environment come into play when you think like that? You know, who are you?
yeah, so let's answer both of those questions. So we have a resting, just like you're thinking. So let's do this. I know for a fact that you do jiu-jitsu, and I know you do as well. So I know that, I'm going to answer your question, though, but I know that in your mind, you are always thinking about a counter. You're thinking about how to negotiate things. When you're in that mat, that's what your mind's thinking of. I don't isolate combat, life or death, to the mat, to the institution, or to that situation up there, or the cage. I put my life or death because of how I live and the circumstances I'm presented with, just being a person I am, that I have to negotiate. I put it in my wheelhouse of thought. Just like some people may think about booties and, oh, she got a big old booty. That's all I think about. Because I used to be that guy. I'm like, oh, I just can't wait to get high. Can't wait to get some booty. And then da-da-da-da. And then maybe fight. You know, in my wheelhouse of thought, I'm thinking survive. I'm thinking negotiate. I'm thinking, what are my egress and egress places? Like, how can I get out of the situation that I'm in if I need to? And we're going to get into why I think that way. And how can I survive if I'm exposed? Meaning, if, just God forbid, anything, this is just like some crazy setup. I'm like, yeah, that is insane. That guy must be crazy because that's what he's thinking about. But I think about these things because more times than not, the variables that I establish for those scenarios come into play.
Is that because of military training, though? Is that like...
So I spent 5 years in the military. Let's get that out there. I didn't spend 20 years in the military. Who is Jason Tate?
Right.
I spent, in 1997, I did something very, I guess the law would say I did something very bad, and I was offered 10 years. And my probation officer, I was 16 and a half. And my probation officer said, look, man, you're very smart. I think you're smart because you get out of trouble. I've known you, you know. By the time I had done 3 years, right? So he's like, hey, I'm going to ask the judge. I had already been to boot camp. I've been to a correctional boot camp. So he was like, and I thrived at it. I loved it. Wake up at 5 a.m, do some running, you know, hear people cry because they're just bitches, you know, whatever, right? I loved it because I was like, I see the rock in me.
Yeah.
Not because I was a rock guy. I'm not a rock guy. I don't come off intimidating, and I shouldn't. I strive not to. Like I'm peaceful flowing, man. You know what I mean? Soft until hard, right? So anyway, he said, let's see if the judge gets you excited, you know, get you in the military. So the judge said, look, he's got 45 days. Whatever service you can get him into at 45, he has to be on a ship. Like, he has to be on the airplane. If he doesn't go back, he's serving his time, right? So I decided in my infinite wisdom to go out and get drunk and high. And yeah, because I love life. Yeah. And I didn't care. And then my probation officer took me to the Mets place where you go, the armed service, enlistment place. And Air Force wouldn't take me because, mind you, so I said I spent 3 years. So I got a GED. I got kicked out of high school in 9th grade.
Okay.
You're talking to a high school dropout.
Uh-huh.
Fact. You want to know more about Jason? Yeah.
Nice.
Got dropped out of high school in 9th grade.
Okay.
Went to get my GED at Job Corps. Got kicked out of GED because they alleged that I was in a gang and that I was selling marijuana, but whatever, right?
Right.
Those guys. And then, so when I go to the Air Force, they were like, "You're serious? Like, have you taken the ASVAB?" And I was like, "No." They're like, "We don't take GEDs." So I went to the Army. This is 1997, 98. So we hadn't been to war yet with Iraq. So they were very, omnis dominus, right?
Okay.
Air Force was like, you're crazy if you think you're going to get in here with a GD, you dumb person. I'm like,
right.
Much smarter than you think, but let's play this game.
Right.
Army was like, nope, we don't take, what was it? I had a record. I was 17. I had a record, so they want nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do with it.
Marines wouldn't take me because I had a GED, believe that or not.
Wow.
So I remember I was feeling like, all right, so when I leave this place, I'm just going to go get real messed up and I'm going to go do some stupid stuff because I'm about to go serve some time because nobody's going to take me.
Yeah.
So I did a little prayer. Yeah. And I walked to the Navy guy, and the Navy guy looked just like me, talked just like he was just like from the streets. And he was like, yeah, man, what's good? You know, and I was like, well, you know, this is what I need to do. He said, man, when you got to get out? And I said, I got 3 weeks, man. He's like, man, go take that ASVAB. I took the ASVAB, came back, scored relatively good, you know. Like ASVAB is a battery test they give you to see your mental aptitude.
Yes.
Right? I scored really well, and everybody was shocked. Like, I was high. And they were like, I was like, yeah, man, I guess I'm kind of smart, dude. You know, like I studied for my GED for one night.
Yeah.
Like literally, just one night. I was like, I'm gonna go take this thing. So, they said they can get me out in 2 weeks. So I booked out, as they call it, shipped out in 2 weeks and joined the Navy. They asked me what I wanted to do. I said I wanted to be a spy, but I also wanted to be like a Navy SEAL. Didn't know what I wanted in life, right?
Right.
So they put me in a program. It's called a plank owners program. It was one of the first programs that was just being introduced, and it was coincidentally intelligence and technology. It was the first time they actually merged them into it, right? Mm-hmm. So they said I had the aptitude for it, and I would learn technology. I could be a hacker and be a spy and all this cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what about SEALs? They're like, oh, you don't look like you're in shape. And I really wasn't in SEAL shape at the time. So I joined the Navy a year in. I imprinted it with this lieutenant who was a SEAL on the ship, and he brought me to the side one day because I was like, man, you train me. You know, we wake up in the morning, 5 a.m. every day. We go run some outside of our normal stuff. Yeah. And then he put me through hell. And then one day he put me to the side. He saw that I had a little bit of fire in me, and he said, "Listen, man, you're not going to make it in the platoons because number one, you're that black guy. Like you're that guy. You have to let people know that you exist, and you know this is how you live, and this is who you're being. I'm just telling you from experience. You got to be a little bit more humble." I'm like, I'm never going to change me for that. He said, "Well, you'll die." I said, "Well." Since you put it that way, that makes kind of sense, you know. So that was that one conversation that changed that course of my trajectory in life, where I said, "Well, I'm going to be in intelligence." Mm-hmm. So at the time, I was learning IT stuff. I learned basically how to hack, right? You know, I was in charge of cryptography, electronic warfare, and the technologies on a ship, right? That's what I was in charge of. That's what my job was. And then a circumstance took place 2 years into my career where, and you can Google this. This is something you can look up. Everything that I say, you can fact check, do all this stuff.
It's fine.
So in 2000, there was a ship called the USS Denver, and the USNS Niagara Falls. Yeah. They got into a wreck. Two big ships in the middle of the ocean. They were doing what's called an unrep. So the operation is, you know, this ship is long haul, so it's out there. So our replenishing ship comes and gives them stuff. Well, the captain of the ship that was driving the Denver was a midshipman, new to the game, didn't know how to follow the whiskey course of speed. Oh. So he was going off his course, got too close. The Venturi effect pulls us in, hits us, crashed two ships in the middle of the ocean. We lost all of our communications. We're in the middle of a place that was moderately sensitive as far as electronic warfare is concerned. So I was the lowest ranking person on the ship, number one, but I was the most technically acumen. I had the most proficiency in the job that I was in. Yeah. So my chief said to my commander, if you need a solution, just bring Seaman Tate. I was a seaman at this point. He says, bring Seaman Tate into the office and we'll talk. The only reason I knew he said that is because he told me later, like when he was drinking, he said, man, I'm glad you showed up because I had a lot of faith in you. Because what happened was we were DIW. DIW means we're dead in the water. Okay. So our ship couldn't communicate with nobody else over the crypto, over the satellites. We had lost all our crypto. We had just gotten into a wreck and we did some emergency destruction. So we didn't have the capability. So my commander was like, what options do we have? And I was like, well, are you asking me above the line or below the line? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, are you asking me what we can do legally or what I think we can do, like, just to get us? He said, shut the fuck up and just tell me what we can do. So I'm not going to repeat what illegal substance and not substance activities that I did to replay the crypto to get our crypto engine going for our satellite communication. But that is what made my mark in my career to say, well, and my even commander at the time was like, you've got something about you. Yeah. You know, I even think he said, boy, and when I was like, got something about you, boy. And I was like, I don't know if I like that, but okay. You know? But I got a sense that I had a gift. Yeah. And I thought at that time my gift was technology. So I went down a real strong path of hacking, and I got into the hacking culture, the DEF CONs and the Jeff Mosses, and Iron Geeks. I'm dropping names for a reason. If you want to know real hackers, like Iron Geek, Jeff Moss, like the real players in the game. Found out that Iron Geek lived across the street from me and growing up. It was interesting stuff. So I thought that was my gift, and it was. It helped me tune into understanding that, everything is a program. I can manipulate. If I am allowed to think in the darkness, I can do anything. And once I am okay with that, I can really do anything.
Yeah.
So my last duty station, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where this was before Gitmo became the detainee base. It was a communication collection outpost. And most people don't know that.
Okay.
So, top secret clearance, all that stuff. That's what I did. I ran the IT intelligence portion of the base. So, and at the time, I had spent the longest amount of Gitmo. Then 9/11 happens. I'm in Gitmo. Then 9/11 happens, and then we decided to, deploy our anger. Fun fact on that topic, it only took us 3 months to turn a base with no prisons into a base with prisons. It only takes 3 months. Fun fact. Like prisons, like proper prisons.
Real big
like
compounds.
Proper prisons. Yeah. So, am I going off? Am I giving you the answer?
No, this is what we want.
That's crazy.
Oh, okay.
That's awesome.
Okay.
So you were there when Gitmo turned into a prison holding facility.
I was there when the captain said, bring Petty Officer Tate in so that we can discuss how we can run the lines and run our networks and the nodes so that we can negotiate this the right way. JTF, Joint Task Force, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, GTMO. I was there on that.
Crazy.
That guy.
That's insane. What was it like?
Which part?
When 9/11 happened, and then
Before,
as it's
paradise.
happening, what
I'll
was
tell
just
you.
happening as it's happening? You're like, wow, this is crazy. I'm being brought in.
There's a lot of things that transpired between that point and previous parts of my career where I was brought into other countries' navies to fix their intelligence gear or their crypto gear because I had a gift.
Right.
And I say that with humility. Like, I didn't understand it. I was just
it's just the truth.
Get it what I do. Like, what's the problem?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not the problem. This is what you need to do. Let me go smoke a cigarette. I need some more Thermogen. This is when Thermogen had a lot of caffeine in it. You know what I'm saying? And it was almost like taking like cocaine. It was like really hot when I'm like, I can think. I'm being honest. I'm just being serious.
No, there's nothing wrong.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's groovy. So when Gitmo happened, when I think back to when I think back in my meditation sessions and when I meditate every morning, I say, what do I want to feel like? I go back to Gitmo before Gitmo turned into Fort Gitmo. Gitmo was paradise. I would go spearfishing with the SEALs and the divers in the base, and we would go out and we see tiger sharks, and we meditate, and we do all the time. I get in fights and stuff because we're just practicing that's why I really got into Tai Chi and Kali and Arnis and stick fighting and Filipino arts there with Kurt Miskimen. Thank you. Shout out. He was the first warrior I met, like first person that taught me like combat. I was like, this guy kills people. You've done this a few times.
Yeah.
So, and that's what got me, that's what he put blood in my throat, if that makes sense. He taught me like most of these, like this knife when he did this to me, like we were doing Kali drills and, he taught me, like, well, you want to learn? I'm like, yeah. Skeleton. Oh, okay. Well, that's probably won't make that mistake again. All right. Hubba blue bub. I get it. Sanawali. So anyway, it was a great breeding ground for me. I was like 20, right? I felt great. I was the best. And then we had 300 people on the base. 300 people. Then overnight, it turned from 300 to 5,000. Army came. There was no army on the base. You only had Marines up on the gate. Like just like in that movie. You want the truth? You can't handle the truth. That was Gitmo. You know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. I know what movie that is.
The truth.
A Few Good Men.
Few Good Men. That was Gitmo. They was talking about Gitmo. You sit over there with your things and you think you can tell me? That was Gitmo. So anyway, so that's all you had. And then overnight, literally, you had this influx of people who were just coming from Iraq. They weren't just regular army. Yeah. They were, you just got from the suck. And that's when I got to see what war felt like. I hadn't been to war yet, and we'll talk about that. So I was like, these guys are not even humans. These are different people. Like, you guys, that's what war feels like. Okay, war changes you, right?
Can you expand on that a little bit?
What those humans felt like?
Yeah.
War changes you. War turns you, number one, you have to, in order to catch bullets effectively with mittens and with capture gloves, and I'm going to explain what that means, you have to understand that you're not like other human beings. You're not like, I'm not you, and you're not you. You are just a nail, and I'm a hammer, and that, as you synthesize that feeling, you start to become that. especially people who have been on the line and that you've got a body count of 36 and you've just seen, you know, what Genghis Khan used to see when you could see taking over small countries. When you hear me say that, I'm not saying that out of joy. I'm saying that when you feel it, you turn into a different being. You see most you civilians, and I say this with respect, you see life through a certain lens until you see war, until you see not murder. Murder and war are two different things. Like, you know, somebody on the streets like bang, bang, bang. No. Bang, bang, bang is one time. When you have bang, bangs and you've got things happening all around you, your senses turn and morph you into a different human being.
Totally.
Your capacity to process information turns you into a different being. How you negotiate that stimuli turns you into a different being. That's the difference between a warrior and a bullet catcher, right?
I like that.
No, it's really, you can be a trainer, you can be just doing your doing what okay, this is what I'm trained to do, and then you can embrace it and lean into it and say, oh, this is what I was brought here to do. And that it's an energy. You can smell it. Like at that age, I smelt it on them. I was like, oh my God. Like I had already smelled death at that. I know what death smells like. When you take a life, there's a smell on you. There's a feeling, you carry that energy. I know what that feels like. I knew that before I even got into the military complex, if you will, right? From my life in the streets. I felt what that was like. So when I started sensing that, I was like, oh wow, this is a whole different level of energy. Like, right?
Yeah.
Some people take it in and they hone it into that 1,000-yard stare, and they feel regret about it. And some people embrace it. It's a part of life. This is what happens. How you negotiate that is up to you. I'm not talking about, people's mental health and how they deal with it. But did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Just want to make sure I answer that. Like, so they were different levels of human. War turns you into chaos. Crisis turns you into a little different level of human. And then what makes you a meta is how you negotiate that energy.
What's a meta?
I identify as a meta. I feel you as being a meta. I feel you as being a meta. A meta is a person that understands the confines of the human system are only limits on their mind. A meta person is somebody that goes out and does impossible stuff, and it's okay with them.
Yeah.
Living on the edges of life. That's what meta means to me.
Yeah.
A meta-human.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, like meta-humans.
People that see war are meta-humans, huh?
People that see war, I wouldn't say are meta-humans. People that negotiate war.
Right. Negotiate war.
People that deal in...
I feel like they're meta-humans.
Negotiate it in a empowering way.
Yes.
Right? Because you can negotiate it in a way where, well, shit, I didn't want to do that. Now I feel regret.
Right? And now it's eating at me. Now I've allowed that energy to turn me into a self-deprecating situation, or just the way it is. You learned a new program. You went out and got out of the war, and you went to go learn a program called Christianity or Islam, and that Islam or that Christianity program is telling you that what you did was wrong. And now that's eating at you, and you see demons, and you see this that could eat at you. Certain people digest war or chaos a different way. When I think when you embrace the meta aspects of life, you say, one, in order to embrace meta, you have to say, everything happens for a reason. Mm-hmm. Everything, whether it's that baby that was, that sounds horrible. I'm about to take it to a depth here, so this is going to be
no, this is going back to the necessary evil part. I mean, everything happened for a reason. Everything. There are necessary evils. And
you choose this life. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people don't have that benefit of seeing life that way, where they don't see how life really works. So they're caught up in the curses of life. They think that, there was a Genesis and there was Adam and Eve, and they think that, so they think, our choices are what no, you chose this life. You look down in that bodysuit and you say, I need to go through this path so I can learn this lesson. So that's how you understand that war, that kid, that woman, that man, that family that died that horrible way, that has this, it was a part of a choice. So embracing the fact that everything happens for a reason is the first level of meta, right? Embracing it. Number two is understanding that everything happens with a reason, and you have a purpose in it. And that purpose in it and the role that you played was divine, and not pointing the lens at yourself. Not saying, because if I were not in my meta mindset, I would probably taking a lot of medications in some psych ward in a rubber room, where rubber rooms are dark and cold. Rubber room dark and cold rubber rooms make you crazy. You've heard that before? So I can see that. But when you embrace it and you say, okay, well, I'm not crazy. Everything has a divine purpose. And the more that this is going to sound like Thanos level, the more that I step into that pain and that chaos and that power, I understand that it was divine, and I'm living in my divine right. I'm not talking about mass murders who go out and say, I'm going to, people blow up stuff. I'm talking about living in that. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think it makes sense.
No, I mean, really. If it's
I think
not,
it makes a lot of sense. No.
And then third meta rule is you got to put your body through things that are not human every freaking day. Every day that you roll and you take these kids from their or these kids and these grown-ups from their places of comfort and make them uncomfortable and teach them how to make the discomfort comfortable. That is meta. Because you're not only changing, you've already went through it. That you're only able to teach what you've been through, right? You can't teach. You can't because you teach what's read in a book. You're going to see those scripts replayed. When my mentors, like I have a mentor right now, a CAG, a special Delta operator, right? We're in a relationship, so to speak, in a relationship of mentoring, of just dealing through the things we dealt through in life, and he's much older than me. Listening to his meta story, like how he became meta, is I can smell, and he says that we can smell things that are read in a book, but when you embrace your power, when you say, I know that when I pick up my weapon and I aim for that spot, I'm going to hit that mark. It's different than saying, I hope, or maybe it will. Yeah. When I'm in combat, when your question earlier, you said, what's the difference between somebody who is trained, and it sounds crazy, that, trained martial artists, black belt, they know combat, but when you're dealing with war and a crisis and it's life or death and it's something that happens and you're on the battlefield and that's not something you're used to against somebody who's used to it, the difference is I'm going to try to fight this guy. I'm going to win this fight. I'm going to have confidence. That's one person saying that, and there's another person said that person doesn't exist. I'm seeing right through you. Like, after I negotiate you, I'm going past that. I don't care what training you. I don't care how big. No, I'm out. I'm out. It's not fair. It's an unfair advantage. What's the unfair advantage? I don't look at you the way you're looking at me. You're looking at me as an opponent. I don't see you. These weapons, these capabilities, capacities, I'm looking at that. And then when you meet people on those two planes and they have that same level, that's what you get to watch. That's a spectacle.
Does that mindset come from a military training?
No. It's a level unlocked. That military training, pressure testing, pressure stress training, putting yourself in these rolling mats over and over and figuring out, like you said earlier, putting yourself in that where you unlock that capability and then you embrace it. Am I answering that correctly?
You have to spend time there.
You have to. Right. You have to get comfortable in your weakest points. You have to get comfortable understanding what makes you that bitch.
So the next question would be, you spent a lot of time there. At what point was that, like in your teens on the street, or was that in your experience as a operator on the field? I didn't get my stuff pushed in until recently, so to speak. Meaning, I didn't realize I had these capabilities in me because there's the term operator. It's usually dedicated for those special forces guys who go through the operator course. I was an SF. I got out of the military and I got recruited. We'll talk about that. And I went through a different pipeline, but okay. So because you have military and then you have agency guys, right? There's different fields, right? We're specializing in different things. So to answer your question, I didn't realize my truest capabilities until I went through a crisis situation about 12 years ago. And I realized that it was either, if you don't live it, if you're not living and you don't take all your training and you apply it now, you're not going to make it. And in that one little mission I was on, that one op, I embodied it and I never let it shut off until I did shut it off maybe like 3 years ago, and then I put a throttle on it. So it was a life and death situation that you had
very life and death, very deception, a lot of coercion, lots of manipulation, lots of things that I thought were real that weren't, a lot of misguided truths that my government was teaching me and telling me at the time that came to fruition that said, why are we really here? What am I really fucking doing? What is this mission about? And it didn't turn out the way I thought it was going to turn out, and it put me in a position where I was in a scenario where I had to play the role for about 2 weeks or I wasn't going to make it. And that's what let me know that it wasn't about me just negotiating people. Negotiating people at that time would have been the worst thing. I had to be small. I had to be very small.
Yeah. So you were in a life and death situation for 2 weeks.
Continuous.
Okay.
Continuous life or death situation. A perpetual situation. We're not going to touch it detail, but not here.
No, yeah, we can't.
Can't. Just choose not to as well.
Oh, okay.
I can do anything I want to, right? Right. By the laws of the alchemy of life, but just don't want to put that on there. But yes, it was 2 weeks. I was in a situation where, and this is in the news. It was about me using my training, not my aggression, not my martial arts or my tactics, defensive tactics, offensive tactics. It wasn't about that. It was about using your training, using the training of understanding, blend in, associate, be affiliate, the soft skills. And that's what that's where I believe meta comes from. It's you come, and I'm going to touch your question, and I'm going to go back to your initial question. When the fighter's fighting, most fighters think that they have to fight. Like we're in a situation of combat, then we have to fight, and it's going to be aggression on aggression, and that's not who wins. It's who can bend, who can be pliable, who can be soft enough during the person using that most amount of force and aggression in that bit amount of time to expose a weakness that can win or accomplish that task, whether that's removing the life, whether it's removing a capability of a movement, whether that's an arm, limb, sight, a sense, removing a sense, and letting that maim take over the combat situation. It's those kind of thoughts that you that make you into that meta capacity where you say, I'm thinking past that. Yeah. Now you come back to civilian life, and now what makes you super meta is I got to do that, and I also got to get away with it.
Yeah. You have to make other people do things that you know you're gonna win ultimately, like insane amounts of manipulation for only a good cause.
Manipulation
literally
is a strong word. No, but it's a good word. Manipulate. So
I mean, I'm just thinking in this intensive 2 week. I'm thinking on your mission. You know what I'm saying? Like on your mission when you're in there and from what I'm understanding, this is one of the realest situations you've ever been into in like one of your adult like times.
It was the first time that I was in a situation where I didn't have backup support, Overwatch, or I didn't constantly know that I was being on a leash. I didn't have somebody constantly monitoring every move. I was off the grid.
Yeah.
I had made a decision that wasn't probably the wisest, but it happened for a reason.
It happened.
That I engaged in a scenario thinking I was going to come up with something new. I disengaged all of my attachments with the agency that I was with, and for 2 weeks, I was out in the wind. And then out of those 2 weeks, I didn't last long into a situation where I was in a scenario where I was on a teeter of life or death for literally 2 weeks. And it wasn't the brawn, it wasn't the training of the push-ups and the pull-ups it wasn't none of that. It was soft skills. It was observe, watch, paralinguistics, mirrors, identify who's in charge, identify who's really in charge and who really thinks they're in. Like really being able to tune into my environment is what kept me alive. That's what turned it into being not being the guy next to me who was 6'2", big body, been through special forces dude that looked like it, so he got the most of it,
right?
Because he looked like it, and I'm like, oh no, I stayed small, and I was using that manipulation, deception, using that was my saving grace.
A little bit of chameleonism in there,
Slippery as a salamander. But understanding that
blend in, change colors, all that.
Soft until hard, but really going soft,
right? And
then really going hard. It's not about carrying it with you. That's why even in Jamaica, and I bring that because I like the Caribbean. They said badness not worn upon face. Badness not worn upon face. And I've been in the streets. I see people. They have to put on that performance of the sure. You got to put it on. And a lot of people have to, Marines and SEALs and CAG, some of them have to put on that charisma to convince themselves that they are that hammer.
But
then
the real guys,
operators,
badness is inside.
Badness on the inside. And you've got the other element of
face. I like that.
The military weaponized complex, which is the intelligence groups. We are not, they are not supposed to look like threats. I'm not going to engage you. Not on camera. I'm not going to engage you in a situation where I have to leave a footprint. I have to leverage my mind. I have to leverage my training. The things when you said earlier, why do you think about everything being a weapon? Because while you look at yourself as one big weapon, why use myself when I have to get out of this situation scot-free? I can leverage other things to move for me. That's where the magic comes from. The power, that's how you harness power. If I can get the juggernauts to be on my team and do the juggernauting on my behalf for whatever coercion or whatever manipulation I leverage, then that's the advantageous place that I need to be.
Yeah.
But can I get in the ring with a juggernaut and stand on the fight? Probably not. Can I defeat a juggernaut? Absolutely. Why? Because he's a human.
Yeah.
He breathes oxygen. He bleeds. She bleeds. They're going to have to go to sleep. They're going to have to do other things. They have codependencies. That's where we have different levels of, and I can see where that sounds insane when I say, yeah, it can be defeated. Yeah, because I'm looking at you different, not you. I look at what I consider to be an opponent in a different lens. Some people say, Hulk smash, I got to go smash. Time to turn up. Me, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to walk you out. You have to breathe. You have to eat. You have to do these things you need. You live in a world where this is how you live. My way to defeat you is going to be from the inside out. Then if we get in a physical confrontation, while you've been focusing on me, I've been focusing on this.
Right.
That's why I think like that.
Yeah. I think it's the most dangerous way to think. I think it's the most advantageous way to think when you're a man on a mission.
I think that life as a man in today's world, we should have the capacity for violence. We should have the capacity for chaos. We should have the capacity for atrocity. But maintaining a level of discipline and decorum about you without showing that capacity is what is needed.
Yeah.
You know, the capacity for violence, that's why I respect BJJ and a lot of the internal arts like Tai Chi, because it doesn't teach you to be, well, while some people take it to their extremes and they just got to walk around and look like steroid hemorrhoids, or they just have to look like they're looking like. The people that can not look like it, I can sit down and I have to really touch you, like I have to shake your hand,
right?
And I can feel it. Like, oh no, that's a killer. That guy right there, yeah.
Right.
So beware of that guy.
Right.
Instead of me seeing, I'm like, oh yeah, you look like something I'm gonna have to negotiate.
Right.
You're gonna be the guy that the cop pulls over first. That all I got to do is say, oh, and the cops gonna come for it.
Yeah.
Good, got you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. The play is, and every man should know how to defend his castle. And his castle is not where he lives.
Yeah.
His castle is his mind frame. Defend your mind frame. Defend being able to defend what you consider what you love, what you consider to be your goal in life, what you consider to be your purpose. Defend that by all costs. And that doesn't mean to use brawn. It doesn't mean to use but having the capacity for it. The real manipulation is I like the way I look. Right, here's what I mean by that without ego. I like being able to look in the mirror and say, "Yeah, you're a sexy bitch. Yeah, yeah," and do that, knowing that other people say, "Oh, that's a bitch thing," or whatever. Right? And they look at that, and I'm like, "Yes, that's my first show. That's my first performance because I'm not going to show you my teeth every time. I don't need to. I don't need to talk with blood in my throat all the time because if I am, I'm putting on a performance that's creating." Programs inside of you to detect me. I don't want that.
Right.
I want to be in your bed, laying next to you when you roll over and you say, how did you get in your bed? And I say, that's the performance.
Right.
Okay, so elaborate on that a little bit because you also were part of an agency, or you got recruited as being part of an agency.
National Geospatial Intelligence Agency.
Say that again.
The National Geospatial Intelligence Agency. The agency that most people don't. You hear about the CIA, you hear about the FBI because they want you to. But under the did I cut you off? I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
Under the intelligence umbrella, there's 17 other intelligence agencies that are on record, and there's about 20 other ones below that people will never hear about. DITRA, Defense Threat Reduction Agencies, all of these agencies. But to answer your question, yes, I was recruited by the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency while I was in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. And that's when I left Guantanamo Bay, Cuba to go to a place in St. Louis, in a place that doesn't exist, and a facility. And that's where I learned more of my craft, if you will, cyber exploitation, human exploitation, and other fun things.
So you're talking about waking up next to somebody without them knowing that you're even there, right?
I mean, that was a metaphor. That was
metaphor,
like
but this is what you guys do at the same time, right?
Yes, and it's not about sneaking covert. We can talk covert entry. But what I meant was
give me an idea of what
that means.
Job looked like.
Oh, what that job looked like. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, in the beginning, the job looked like my job because of some things that took place in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I was discovered to be really good at exploiting people, places, and things. Red teaming is what they call it in the game, if you will. So breaking into bases, looking at ways to influence people to let you into places where you're not supposed to be.
Right.
Waking up in front of your bed and you're saying, how did you get here? But it's okay because I'm not alarmed. Making that comfort with people, socially engineering human beings. So the first 2 years of that life was spent, there was a situation that was taking place by China. China was coming into a lot of our special operations capable bases, and they were sending nondescript agents that don't look Chinese, that they were going in our bases, stealing sensitive information. The United States government didn't know how they were doing it. So they created a team called the Date Mitigation 4 team. Deny all permit by exception. It sounds quirky or whatever, but there was a very specialized unit of 40 people that was selected out of maybe 5,000 that had certain skill sets that knew how to use cyber exploitation, human exploitation, covert entry. We all had different skill sets. So I was next to a guy that was a Delta operator. He knew how to shoot, but I don't know what the fuck we're going to use him for. He looks like we can't get anywhere with him. But, but then it turned out that his intimidating stature is the one that got us through the gates. We created out of those 40 people, we turned into small teams of 6. And my job specifically, as I was trained, of course there was training that we're not really going to, we can get into it a little bit, but there was a training involved, a training component where we learned things like sensitive site exploitation, covert entry, a lot of other fun things like.
So covert entry is a fancy way to say sneaking into a house, right? Sneaking into a place.
Not just sneaking. Covert is about leaving no trace. It's about the difference between concealment and cover, or understanding what leaves traces, what doesn't, what makes you what marks you as being there. Covert entry is leaving no trace, going in and considering it a crime scene, leaving, not infiltrating anything. Right. And then entry is one thing, exfiltration is another. Right? So
getting out.
Yeah, getting in is what you sell. That's what you tell your assets. You teach your asset how to get in. An asset is somebody that you, oh yeah, come on, you're gonna be a part of this agency. Yeah, we're gonna teach you. Yeah, whatever you want. Yeah, we're not. And then really, you're just leveraging them for whatever other situation. Of course, I am dumbing that down. Those out there in the field, you know why I'm dumbing that down, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, so there was a training component, and then we had a target list. So I can speak about it now: Fort Hood, Fort Bragg, Fort Stewart, Fort Gordon, and 4 other places, agencies that my job and my team, we had an objective, a capture the flag objective, like a piece of information we needed to get. We needed to put ourselves and take photos of us being in this SCIF, sensitive compartmentalized information facility, and we only had a budget of $5,000. And we couldn't use military identities, and we couldn't use any of our old, we had rules. Because what they wanted us to do is replay how the Chinese would have done it. And it's just so funny we're talking about this right now on this podcast, and yesterday on the news, it was all over CNN, Chinese discovered playing social engineering tactics near bases to try to gain access. So the scenarios that we created 12, 20, 15 years ago are now the Chinese are doing again. And it's replaying its tactics. Am I answering your question?
No, yeah, that's kind of what I had in mind, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were doing.
Nailed it. Nailed it.
Yeah. So I did that, and then when I did that with the NGA, other agencies heard, because this is a time where cyber wasn't really big. Cyber was a word that was used.
It was coming out, right? This was when? Mid-2000s?
Yeah, like 2004, 2005,
right?
2006.
You got in 1997. You kind of quickly elevated, but now you're getting into your own.
Yeah, now working for the agency, I'm learning cyber warfare, not just cyber operations.
And it's
the difference.
And it's like evolving like
overnight. And so so we're creating things. They didn't
literally.
They brought us in because they said, I'm just going to use this reference, and it's a true stat reference. We had an Asian guy, highly technical guy. Like the guy was, when you talk about hacking to this day, I think I haven't met anybody on par with him, and I think he's probably working in a basement for some agency still to this day.
Right.
But he was good. There was no system he couldn't break. No ICS, no access control system. There was nothing with a chip in it that he couldn't manipulate. Really? Me, I was good at humans. Like give me time, let me watch him. I can play you. I can get him. I'll massage this. I'll get close enough that we can actually replay this attack, or I can get a proximity sensor and clone his back. Whatever. I was good at that. And also good at a few other things.
Yeah,
we can talk about it later.
Yeah.
But so we had those teams, and our job was to get onto these bases, and we had to figure each other out really quick. Like we only had 6 weeks, and we had to accomplish a mission for each one of those weeks. So of course our team, because I'm Jason Tate and I'm amazing, and I say that with ego. I'm just being funny. Thank you, Most High, for allowing me to be who I am.
Yeah.
But all jokes aside, our team was one of the best.
Yes.
So We finished our mission much quicker than most people. And then after that, I was selected for other agency operations and engagement. So I went directly from there to the Pentagon. And then I did something at I did a project with the Pentagon, and I didn't like it. And I think kind of also I wanted to go do some shrooms and other drugs, and I didn't want to be on drug testing. I'm being very transparent here.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So my daughter's mother called me in California. She's like, hey, you need to come out here and take care of your daughter because I'm about to go to deployment. Turned out to be a bit of a lie, but she just wanted me to be close to my daughter because I was getting addicted to that feeling. And went out there and found out what Molly was, and raised my daughter as well for a civilian company. So I spent about 7 months with a civilian company, and I threw up. I woke up one day and I was throwing up because I was like, this ain't doing shit. You guys are here worrying about insurance and body and none of these lines. I miss doing stuff for people's lives. Where like,
right.
I knew that
what's going on out here. I want to be a part of it, or I feel like I'm a waste.
Or I'm working for the devil. I was working for, that's what I felt like. I was like, I'm working for a guy that woke up one day and said he wants to sell insurance policies, but he does this, and now he has this big company, and now I'm just a cog in his wheel, and all he cares about is dollars. And when I tell him what's really going on, I was like, I ain't got time for this.
Right back to the beginning.
Yeah, I got time for this. So I took an engagement in Bahrain. That's when I went overseas to Bahrain and really got into some fun shit, so to speak. Yeah, that was really, when you're running a cover, you're presenting yourself as one person to a certain group of people, but you're actually doing something else.
Was this with an agency?
This was a mixture between the Army, the agency, a joint task force. We'll say that. Yeah, top secret. Yeah, fun stuff.
That's when.
This is
2012 or something.
8, 9.
Okay.
First
So
time.
earlier.
So I went to Bahrain the first time in 2008, 9, and then immediately after that went to Honduras. Because I left the reservation. I said, no, I can't do this shit. I got to go back to the government. I love this stuff too much.
Yeah.
And that's when I started to turn myself into the cyber weapon, or the entity that I am now, where it's like I got to learn policy. I got to learn how things with, all aspects, 360 degrees of cyber exploitation, cyber doctrine, cyber operations. While Edward Snowden was, one point in time, his building at Booz Allen was literally across the street from the place where I was working at. While he was working on CND, CNO, computer network operations, I was doing computer network defense. So I was creating, because of all the things I had done, all the exploitation all the things that I had learned, I was teaching and showing and implementing different safeguards at different bases, agencies, how to protect themselves from people like me on the darker side of things.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
It allowed me to be the dark guy.
Yeah,
I am dark, but it allowed me to be the dark guy.
Right.
And thought, which allowed me to unleash my capabilities of exploitation.
Right.
And that's kind of why I have a passion for what I do now. It's not because I read it in a book.
Yeah.
I don't look at
you've
stuff
just
and say,
done it, dude.
I've done it, I've seen it, and it's not that I've done it and I've seen it. I also see what the ramifications are, what the consequences are of living in a sleep society, a society that only sees work, play. This is how we live, and we're going to do this, and we're going to listen to the news. I used to run those exploitation scripts. I used to go out, and I went out and I bought a cell phone company on the government's dime in a certain country so that I could do cell phone repair, because I knew that my guy was going to do something to this guy's phone to make him have to come to my cell phone repair shop.
Right.
I know how this works.
Yeah.
So I get access to his phone. That's just a small subset of it. Now we're dealing with T-Mobile and all these hacks where people don't really, they've been so desensitized to the poison. They've taken it as nutrients and they're digesting it, and their their byproducts of existence are nothing but exploitable clones. And I don't like that.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. When they were doing the submarine thing, when the 5 billionaires in the submarine got dropped, the Hunter Biden emails were finally being released. So they wanted to cover it up as much as they could. Yeah. This is what you know. When things happen, you're like, oh, let's check the opposite side and see what's really going on. And if you guys are still asleep, then,
don't listen to what the news is saying. Listen to what the news is not saying. Is what I tell people, right?
Yes.
Like, what are they not?
Yes, dude.
When that was going on, of course, it was a distraction and deflection. Misinformation, disinformation. These plays that we see on today is so ingrained in everything that we do.
Yeah.
It's even hard for me to have a relationship.
dude.
No, really. Friendships, relationships. I mess with people lightly. Even being in this chair with you guys.
Right. No, yeah.
How I mess with you, how I negotiate you. I came in here not because I want to learn jiu-jitsu, not necessarily. I wanted to see where my tribe was. Is there a tribe here? Are there warriors in the midst?
Yeah.
Okay, I want to be around them.
Right.
What kind of warriors are these? Oh, okay, these are cool. All right, next.
Right.
If I need to negotiate, that's a part of your trade craft, if you will.
Yeah.
Creating your exfil if you need
100%.
whatever it is. These relationships, it's not fake. I respect you. I appreciate you. We talk. It's not fake. It's not synthetic. It's scripted, if that makes sense. It's a part of my programming.
Yeah.
But it also, I like to be around people who are not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Yes.
I'm being funny.
Hey, dude.
I'm being funny.
Oh, God. No, I was kidding.
But does that make sense?
Yes. No. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, you don't get to talk to real people too much, huh?
But when I do, it's so beautiful. It's like dancing. Man. It's like dancing with the prom date. I don't get to talk to many people, and I do live a life where I've learned what the alchemists and the sages and the very wise people say about finding yourself in your solitude. Because there's no place I'd rather be than with the birds, bees, leaves, and trees, and myself and the person I believe. Yeah, Ralph Smart. But anyway.
That was nice.
Yeah, there's a guy named Ralph Smart. He's like one of the tribe members, if you will, and he's like on a spiritual level. Yeah. But I love listening to my own dialogue because I know that 99% of the NPCs that I interact with in this reality, they're repeating scripts.
Right.
And because people don't understand, we can talk about two things right now if you want to merge this in.
If we have time. If we have time. It's about an hour and 50 minutes. We're hitting 2 hours.
Oh, so the battery died on this.
That's all right. We're just going. We're going, baby. This will be one of the last things. Let's touch on it. Let's keep going. But this will be the last 15 minutes or so.
Okay. Yes. Wow. 2 hours?
Goes quick.
We've been kicking.
Goes quick, baby.
Let them cook, baby.
That's right. Exactly. Like, who cares, All
right. So there's two things that happens in this world, right? You've got the spiritual aspect of existence where people don't really put a lot of, they put their spiritual belief in a religious structure. So they have those programmings of, Christianity, Islam, all those religious structures, Buddhism, and they rely on them so much because the other manipulation play is what's being put out in the world. The news, the misinformation, the food, what we're eating, what you're consuming, the especially here in America, that everything is contaminated, like literally to a point where a lot of the people who think they're making sexualized choices about their sexuality, it's not that. And I'm not talking about that. That's not a conversation. What I'm saying is there's a lot of manipulation so deep deeply entrenched into the American society that people think they're making sexuality choices based off of what they think, but it's really in the food. The foods, there's studies about making things over-estronizing the elements of food that makes people more effeminate, which is a part of the system to deconstruct the male dominating testosterone, the strong elements of males in this country, and making them docile so they can be more controlled. So you add these two things together, and now you're walking around interacting with people who don't want you to talk freely. They don't want you to express yourself freely. If I'm too aggressive, I'm too, then, oh, shit, this nigga's serious. And I use the word nigga for a reason. Like, they're like, oh, this guy's really about that, or I need to put a watch on him. So you have to, I find myself tiptoeing on the edges, on these blades all the time, because I have to, number one, see who I can talk to.
Yes.
And it's not that I don't want to be hanging around, just like, I'm not going to talk to you too long because that creates a footprint. And it's not that somebody's after you. It's just there's so many NPCs. Yeah, you don't want it. And there's so many NPCs out here. There's so many people who don't know that everybody you meet today is a sensor. They carry a phone. They carry a laptop. They go interact with other people, especially if they're the people like, we got to go get and I'm not talking about what your choices, but if you get the vaccine, and the fear, if they're a part of that fear system, then they're going to report on you. So you have to choose your words wisely. You have to watch what you say. Like literally watch the words that you see. Like when I speak, I'm watching because I want to make sure that what I'm saying is something that I want you to see.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's an isolated life, but you know what's so fun about it? It's so free. I don't live in a hive. It's something like your jiu-jitsu studio here or the studio that we have here. You have here that I am appreciative that I've even coming in contact with both of you. That you're teaching people how to unlock themselves. You're teaching people that not everything that you see is what you get. You're teaching people that you may think this is how the pain works, but the pain works this way. Those little codes that you're impregnating or injecting or infusing is a better word into these kids, into these grown-ups, you're teaching them how to live better. And that's why I fuck with you.
Dude, it's respectable. I love listening to you talk, dude.
Groovy, man. I appreciate you receptive.
Even groovy. My mom says groovy, and it's just like a comforting word for me to hear, you know? Like,
yeah.
Groovy, man.
Yeah. There's no.
It's a good time.
It's a choice.
You're full of wisdom. You're full of insight. There's so many more hours we could do on this podcast with you, dude. I
love the opportunity, man.
Really appreciate you coming in and spending time.
Namaste.
We have taken up too much time, though.
Yeah, my apologies, man. Yeah, groovy. Okay.
No apologies needed. But, dude, we'll have you back again. Man, I appreciate you. Like, I really appreciate you. I hope this was a good time. I think this was a good time. I think people are really going to enjoy listening to it, watching it, and, keep in touch. And we want to know what you're doing.
Yeah, man.
I don't think we're ever really going to know what you're doing. But no, we know. We want to know what you're up to. We want to build relationships.
Yeah, man.
That's what we want to do with the podcast in specific, because we want you to come back and teach us things. I had a ton of fun, dude. Like, I learned things. I thought things. I had perspectives brought to me. We want to have you back, so don't fly away too far.
Wherever I fly away to, I'll only be a signal message away.
Fantastic. There we go. Fantastic. What do you got?
I got nothing. Hey, you got to download Signal.
Yeah, you got to download Signal. Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's how it works, man.
That's right.
That's the only way to get in contact with them.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an app?
It's an app. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm a signal message away. Yeah, that's what it means.
Fantastic.
Yeah, man.
I love it.
I appreciate you having me, man. I know sometimes I went off on a little bit of a tangent and I spoke, without commas, but I appreciate your receptivity and your flexibility, man. I think that what we discussed today, a lot of people are going to find seeds of insight and light. It's going to help them on their path.
Oh, yeah.
I love your energy as well. I see you, like I can see you.
Right.
So I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I love that. I'm getting a little emotional because I can see that what this is doing. You know what I mean? And appreciate you too, brother. Good questions.
Hey, man, I long overdue. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Namaste, brother.
Hey.
For sure.
Thank you.
Guys, episode 10. Jason Tate. Jason Bourne. Okay? We love you, all right? Get some sunlight. Go for a walk. Call your mom. Hug your mom. All that stuff.
Get out in nature. Yeah.
Get out in nature, baby. We're not being recorded? Is it recorded?